On an ordinary afternoon in Germany, hundreds of passengers boarded a Vietnam Airlines Boeing 787, expecting nothing more than a routine journey home. But within minutes, that flight would become the center of an international aviation investigation, a mysterious loss of acceleration, a critical decision at takeoff, a damaged aircraft, and a 2-hour flight before returning safely. Stay with this documentary until the very end, because every moment brings you closer to understanding what really happened during this extraordinary flight. The aircraft was Vietnam Airlines Flight VN34, a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner operating from Munich to Hanoi. On board were 271 passengers and 16 crew members. The weather was ideal. Visibility was clear. The runway stretched 4,000 meters ahead. For everyone on board, it looked like the beginning of another normal long-haul flight. The pilots completed their final checks, received takeoff clearance, and slowly guided the Dreamliner onto runway 26 left. Thrust was applied, and the Dreamliner accelerated normally down the runway. 80 knots, 100 knots. All indications appeared normal. Then, midway through the takeoff roll, the aircraft's acceleration unexpectedly stopped increasing for about 2 seconds. It was subtle enough that passengers wouldn't have noticed, but inside the cockpit, the changing performance demanded the crew's full attention. Moments later, acceleration returned as the aircraft continued toward V1, the critical decision speed. Just after passing V1, the crew noticed another unexpected drop in speed. Now they had only one decision: reject the takeoff or fly. With too little runway remaining, stopping safely was no longer possible. The captain advanced the engines to maximum thrust. The nose lifted. The Dreamliner became airborne, but the tail struck the runway. A powerful tail strike damaged the rear underside of the aircraft as it climbed away from Munich. The flight was airborne, but the emergency had only just begun. Shortly after departure, the flight crew received multiple cockpit warnings and declared an emergency with Munich air traffic control. An immediate landing, however, was not possible. Flight VN34 had departed on an 11-hour long-haul journey from Munich to Hanoi, carrying approximately 70 to 85 tons of jet fuel, including the fuel required for the flight, mandatory reserves, and operational contingencies. At that weight, the aircraft exceeded its maximum landing weight. The crew entered a holding pattern south of Munich, where the Boeing 787 conducted fuel jettison to safely reduce its landing weight. For nearly 2 hours, the aircraft remained in controlled holding while fuel was released and emergency services prepared for its return. Only after reaching a safe landing weight did the crew commence the approach back to Munich. Before the final approach, the crew performed one last precaution. The Dreamliner flew low over the runway, allowing specialists on the ground to visually inspect the landing gear. The confirmation came back. The gear was extended. The runway was ready. Emergency crews stood by. Minutes later, the Boeing 787 touched down safely. Despite the damaged aircraft and multiple failed tires, the crew maintained complete control from touchdown to a safe stop. Every one of the 287 people on board survived without injury. The preliminary findings provide the clearest picture yet of what happened during Flight VN34. The investigation confirms that the aircraft experienced an unexpected interruption in acceleration during the takeoff roll, followed by another decrease in speed after passing V1. Because the aircraft had already passed V1 and there was insufficient runway remaining to safely reject the takeoff, the crew selected maximum thrust and continued the departure. The aircraft became airborne with approximately 300 feet of runway remaining, but the late rotation resulted in a tail strike. However, the preliminary report has not established what caused the loss of acceleration. There is currently no confirmed finding identifying a brake problem, engine problem, performance calculation error, or pilot error as the cause. That is now the central question for investigators. What caused the aircraft's acceleration to deviate from the expected takeoff profile? Until the investigation is completed, the cause remains undetermined. The preliminary report, therefore, gives us a clearer understanding of what happened, but not yet why it happened. Thank you for watching. In this documentary, we explained the Vietnam Airlines VN34 Boeing 787 incident in detail, from the initial takeoff and the critical events that followed, to the latest findings from the preliminary investigation. If you have any thoughts or information about this incident, feel free to share them in the comments below. As the investigation continues, we'll bring you the latest confirmed updates as they become available. If you found this documentary informative, please like, subscribe, comment, and share the video.